Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, your go-to source for reliable updates and financial insight surrounding Iraq's currency and the potential for revaluation. Today's episode covers a topic that continues to generate massive interest: how much wealth could realistically be gained if the Iraqi dinar experiences a revaluation, and more importantly, how much of that potential gain you'd actually keep after all is said and done. We'll look beyond the hype and explore real-world numbers, potential exchange scenarios, and critical steps you need to consider to protect your gains. And people talk about the RV, they're referring to a formal revaluation, an official decision by the Central Bank of Iraq, CBI, to increase the value of the Iraqi dinar relative to other currencies such as the US dollar. This isn't a small adjustment or speculative market swing. It's a structured move backed by Iraq's financial policies and broader macroeconomic developments. Such a decision would rely heavily on factors like national stability, oil revenue performance, the country's foreign reserves, and the pace of institutional reforms. It's a possibility that's been debated for years, but one that's only feasible when Iraq demonstrates sustained growth and credibility in the international financial system. If that moment does arrive, the obvious question becomes, how much money are you likely to receive when converting your dinar? Let's break that down. If the rate is set at 10 USD per IQD, owning 1 million dinar would convert to $100,000, 0 cents. Should the rate rise to 50 per dinar, your total jumps to $500,000, 0 cents, and in the highly optimistic case, where 1 IQD equals 1 USD, you'd be holding the equivalent of $1 million, 0 cents. On paper, that looks exciting. But what matters most isn't how big that top-long number appears. It's how much of it ends up in your pocket, after taxes, fees, and potential hurdles. In the United States, the Internal Revenue Service classifies profits from foreign currency transactions as capital gains. If you've held your dinar for more than a year, it may fall under long-term capital gains, which usually come with lower tax rates, but regardless of how long you've owned it, all gains must be reported. Failing to do so could trigger audits or legal complications. That's why it's vital to connect with a certified tax advisor before the RV event occurs. Planning in advance allows you to map out your potential liabilities and maximize your retained profit. Let's take a practical case. Imagine you bought 1 million dinar for $850, 0 cents. If the RV sets the exchange rate at 50 per IQD, you'd now be holding a portfolio worth $500,000, 0 cents. However, a 10% exchange service fee could immediately subtract $50,000, 0 cents, leaving $450,000, 0 cents. Now factor in taxes. If you fall within the 20% capital gains bracket, that's potentially another $90,000, 0 cents, $100,000, 0 cents deducted. The final result? You might walk away with approximately $350,000, 0 cents. Which is still a remarkable return but significantly lower than the headline number. Aside from taxes, you must consider the logistics of the exchange itself. Not all outlets will be safe or legitimate. Once an RV is announced, fraud attempts are almost certain to rise. That means steering clear of shady dealers or unregulated online services. Instead, prioritize well-established banks with foreign exchange capabilities or verified platforms with clearly outlined terms. Each option may impose varying fees, redemption limits, or processing times. Be prepared by researching and selecting your exchange location before the RV hits the news cycle. Another common question is what happens with the physical dinar notes post-RV. Based on precedent and public statements from Iraqi officials, older notes are expected to remain valid, but only temporarily. Countries that revalue or redenominate currencies often implement a transitional period during which old notes can be converted to the new value. Once that deadline expires, those notes might lose their redeemable status. That's why it's wise to monitor official guidance and make sure you act within any designated exchange windows. Another layer to think about is investor behavior. When excitement builds around a potential revaluation, emotions can run high, especially with rumors spreading rapidly across social media and forums. But smart investors don't rely on hype or hearsay. They stick to verified information and prepare accordingly. Acting on impulse in an environment filled with speculation can lead to costly mistakes. The most effective strategy is to remain disciplined and focus on preparation rather than prediction. One key area where preparation pays off is documentation. If you're holding dinar, make sure your physical notes are stored in a secure location, ideally in fireproof and waterproof containers. Also, have your purchase receipts, certificates of authenticity, and identification documents ready for verification. Being organized ahead of time will save you critical hours or even days when the exchange window opens. You don't want to be the one scrambling for paperwork while others are cashing out. There's also a common debate over whether it's better to convert all your dinar right away or hold some for potential future appreciation. Some analysts believe that the first revaluation rate could be modest, with the potential for further increases down the line. Others think locking in profits immediately is the safest path. The truth is, there is no universal answer. A hybrid approach could work well, exchanging a portion of your dinar to cover immediate goals and keeping some as a hedge for future growth. It's important to remember that governments often implement temporary limits after major currency shifts. This means you might not be able to exchange your entire stash at once. Daily or weekly caps could restrict how much you can redeem, requiring you to pace your exchanges over multiple sessions. Understanding this in advance allows you to structure a plan, one that includes how much to convert, where, and when. Beyond the mechanics of exchanging, another crucial factor is understanding the economic backdrop. Iraq has taken notable steps toward improving its financial system. Efforts to reduce corruption, stabilize political agreements, and reform its oil and gas revenue distribution have gained traction. The long-denied hydrocarbon law is inching closer to finalization, which could have a significant impact on the nation's fiscal transparency and investment climate. These reforms aren't superficial, they are structural shifts that bolster long-term economic health. Additionally, Iraq's push toward full compliance with IMF Article 8 is a signal that the country is aligning with international standards for currency convertibility. That compliance would enable easier access to Iraq's financial markets by global investors and provide greater flexibility for foreign exchange. These developments are essential if Iraq aims to attract serious global capital and reset its position on the financial map. In this context, a currency revaluation becomes more plausible, not guaranteed, but supported by stronger fundamentals than we've seen in years past. Another point to remember is timing. No one, not influencers, not YouTubers, not bloggers, can forecast the exact moment an RV might take place. Even institutional analysts tread carefully when making such predictions. But the difference in today's landscape is that the building blocks are finally being laid. With improved governance, decreasing national debt, and stronger relationships with global financial institutions, Iraq is laying the groundwork that could support a currency reset. So what should you do right now? The most productive thing is to get organized. If you're holding dinar, ensure they're accounted for, documented, and securely stored. Vet the banks and exchange outlets you plan to use. Don't wait until the news breaks. That's when everyone else will be rushing to do the same thing. Establish your tax strategy with a licensed professional so you won't be blindsided by tax liabilities or reporting requirements. These aren't just logistical tips, they're ways to protect your future wealth. And perhaps the most vital mindset to keep is one of cautious optimism. Whether or not a revaluation occurs in 2025, all indicators suggest that Iraq is moving toward increased economic stability. The momentum is real, and if a shift in currency value happens, it will likely reward those who are prepared, not just those who dreamed the loudest. The potential for significant returns is there, but only those who approach it with patience, planning, and prudence will truly benefit. At Iraqi Dinar News, we'll continue to monitor these developments closely. If and when that pivotal moment arrives, you'll want to be ready, not reacting. As always, Thank you for tuning in, and stay sharp, stay organized, and stay informed.